Hey everyone, new here, so pardon me if I'm not up on the acronyms. Background: married to my WW for 3 years, dated over a decade before. A month since D-Day when the BW of the OM messaged me with evidence of a probable affair, including a love note from my WW. The next 2 weeks were a blur as WW gave me the TT treatment. Started as just friendship, then, made out a few times, progressed to emotional relationship for 2 months. And finally, what I think is the truth. WW and the OM had a year-long affair, meeting regularly in hotel rooms, once a week or more. They exchanged numerous love letters, expressing their desire to live together. They even had SEX in my house while I was away on business. I believed constant lies about her working late. I'm fairly certain this version is true, verified by phone tracking history, although she conveniently deleted from her phone before I could see messages. She's quite the expert at that. Presently, since being discovered, WW is emotionally distressed and eager to salvage the marriage. She's pushing for couples counseling, urging me to delay a final decision on divorce for a few more months. She claims to have severed ties with the OM, to my knowledge, and granted access to her accounts, as far as I know. Despite living separately, our conversations revolve around what she can do to save the marriage. My primary concern is distinguishing genuine remorse from regret at being caught. Examples include labeling the year-long affair as temporary insanity, indicating a lack of responsibility. While she offers phone access, she becomes upset if I read texts with her parents, deeming them not relevant. I've set a due date for the decision on divorce, but I'm unsure when my mind will be in a healthy state for such a choice. Currently leaning towards filing for divorce to move on with my life and career, but questioning if it's impulsiveness or intuition guiding me. I've noticed someone visited my WW's thread on another forum after this post, possibly causing tension. Please refrain from antagonizing her. That wasn't my intention. I hope to post anonymously. Regarding her version, she claims they didn't have sex in our bed but on the living room couch. She justifies it as inviting him to watch TV, and the sex just happened. However, she turned off the living room security camera before he arrived, suggesting she anticipated the direction it was heading. On another note, I contacted an IC today for a consultation. Perhaps it will be beneficial, or I might end up paying to rehash what I'm sharing here. Who knows? Seeking advice from those who've navigated similar situations. Any guidance or experiences to share? Show of hands. Moving on, the OM was her co-worker, and their emotional affair, EA, started around June of last year while working closely on late-night projects. The affair turned physical in September. Despite him leaving for another job in October, they chose to continue the affair, meeting regularly from October until D-Day in late June 2017. What's frustrating is how she portrayed their relationship to me. She talked about him like a bothersome child, sharing details of his business decisions and laughing about his extravagant car expenses. She constantly texted him, brought his gifts into our home, and even sought my feedback on bread he baked. I genuinely believed he was just an innocent, somewhat clueless guy. There was one instance before the affair became physical when I expressed concerns via text. Me: should I be worried about this guy? WW: worried how? And no, I don't think so. Me: you're meeting up for 5-hour weekend meals, texting all the time, meeting before work. WW: no, not like that. We can talk about it more when I get home, but like I said, if you're not cool with it, I won't go. If you are okay with it, I would like to. Trusting my wife, I didn't feel or express discomfort about the again. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after those texts, they met in a hotel room, marking the beginning of the physical affair. Regarding the letters, she kept all his in a shoebox in our closet, totaling around 2 dozen. He consistently expresses his intense love for her, commenting on her attractiveness and detailing intimate moments. In May, he wrote a 12-page history of their relationship with dates and descriptions, oddly helpful from my perspective. As for her letters to him, I only have the one sent by his BW. My WW claims she only responded twice, including the letter I received, and another still in his possession. While it's hard to believe she only wrote back twice, the concept of handwritten love notes seems outdated. The one letter I did read from her is devastating. Choice snippets include, "I'm not willing to give up on this, on you, on any of it. I'm not willing to even consider it, but I'm scared out of my mind. Being with you makes me feel alive, reckless, beautiful, and young. I love you doesn't capture it. It's a more complicated, nuanced thing than just love, something soul deep, something without a name. I feel like the best version of myself when I'm with you. A part of me wants nothing more than to run off with you and see where this madness takes us. That part of me is loud. That part of me fantasizes about starting over with you, arguing over the thermostat and falling asleep on your shoulder, wasting hours chatting about the most mundane things. I hope you know I'm absolutely 100% without a doubt crazy in love with you. No joke. Update. Hey everyone, haven't caught up on the recent posts, but I wanted to chime in. My WW mentioned encountering negativity in her thread on the Wayward forum since I started here. Sniping based on my disclosures isn't helpful for either of us. I want to clarify. She was part of this community before me and suggested I seek advice here. If this contentious activity persists, I'll exit the community. Thanks again, everyone. Apologies for the tone regarding her thread. I believe there's space for both of us here. I don't want users to think I'm urging them to confront her on my behalf. I've done plenty of that myself. Her lack of honesty is a recurring concern, and I fully agree. She tends to revise history, claiming she didn't care about the guy and that things were ending. However, this contradicts the physical evidence I've gathered, and I'm certain the deleted messages are worse. My self-imposed deadline complicates matters. Instead of self-reflection, she's trying to align with what she thinks I want. I've emphasized that she may not be mentally prepared to work on our marriage, but her desperation to make me stay overshadows everything. Someone mentioned she seems like a good liar. I agree. It feels like an improv game to downplay any new information. I'm unsure if it's conscious or if she's afraid to admit it to herself. Thankfully, no children are involved in this mess. An excellent point I hadn't considered is the impact on potential future children. If I ever decide to have children, she isn't the right person to be their mother. Her stress and unhappiness at work, contributing to the affair, make it clear she may not be in the right mental state. Many have rightly observed that the affair likely would have persisted if I hadn't discovered it. Recently, she found the last message she sent to the OM, just 6 hours before I received the message from the OMBW. I appreciate her honesty in showing it to me instead of deleting it, but it painted a drastically different picture than the one she was presenting. Update. Today, WW finally provided a written timeline detailing the entire affair. Utilizing her phone's location tracking data from the past year, she went through each date, recounting every interaction with the OM. I independently verified the information using the stored data. She specified the number of times they met for various activities, including hotel encounters, coffee meetings, shopping trips, and lunchtime walks. Oddly, I anticipated an emotional breakdown upon hearing the timeline, but I found myself oddly resigned. I listened, asked a few questions, then essentially said, "Okay, are we done here?" and headed to work. Uncertain if this reaction is numbness or acceptance, it could signify moving forward with my life or avoiding confronting my emotions. There were specific details about Essex acts they engaged in that she hadn't mentioned before, although nothing she hadn't done with me previously. Surprisingly, she also disclosed buying him a $75 Christmas gift and sending sexy photos that she never told me about. Additionally, the revelation that the emotional affair crossed boundaries much earlier than I thought was jarring. Despite texting her in mid-August expressing concern, she assured me everything was under control. However, today's disclosure revealed 8 to 10 threads of explicit texts in July 2016, including personal fantasies and sexy stories. She had sent him photos in her underwear, indicating she knew it was out of control, and lied about the situation when I asked. Lastly, she confessed to sending him a daily morning bathroom selfie from October 3rd to June 20th over 8 months. Not a sexy photo, just a fully clothed shot in front of the sink. The reason? He wanted to be the first to know what she was wearing each day. A manipulative power play I was unaware of. I'll be more straightforward here. We're all adults, and since none of you know me in real life, I'll just say it. Anal. We had experimented with it a few times in the past, but it wasn't a significant aspect of our intimate life. The last time was around 5 years ago. Imagine my surprise when it was mentioned on the timeline today. True to form, after the disclosure, she mentioned that she didn't particularly enjoy it with her AP. It was something he wanted, so she went along with it. You gotta hand it to her. She's nothing if not consistent. Hey everyone, thought I'd drop in with an update. I appreciate the concern from those who noticed my absence. It's been a lonely time, so knowing some internet strangers are thinking of me is uplifting. Started individual counseling this week. Uncertain what will come of it, but I'll be going weekly for now. Prefer it over the couples counseling my WW had me attend. The MC sessions felt biased, almost pushing for us to reconcile as a personal victory. I didn't like that, so I won't continue. WW and I have been living separately for about 4 weeks. It's been beneficial for me to have space and focus, especially working from home with triggering reminders. Unfortunately, she's moving back this weekend. I might find other places to be when she's around or suggest she go upstairs. I'm figuring it out. When she moved out temporarily, I encouraged WW to use the time to work on herself, and she's taken that advice to heart by attending her own IC. In our phone conversations, she expresses how valuable these sessions are, gaining a better understanding of herself and beginning to cope with her actions. Strangely, it leaves me feeling resentful. I almost don't want her to feel better. Part of me wishes she'd be in as much agony as I am. Maybe it's just petty. Thanks again for the advice and thoughts. I've read everyone's posts multiple times, and it's reassuring to know there are people out there supporting me. Regarding the WW's addiction, I might have been too vague, unintentionally leading to an image of her in a dire situation. So for clarity in this anonymous space, I'll share it's self-harm. She was a cutter in high school and disclosed it to me during our freshman year of college. Although she claimed it was in the past, she relapsed 3 times in our 13-year relationship, with the most recent occurrence a few months ago. I appreciate your advice, and I'm genuinely trying not to enable or reinforce her history of self-harm, struggling to find the balance between compassion and avoiding codependency. A few weeks ago, WW sent me voicemails she discovered on her phone, audio recordings sent to AP just before D-Day. She offered to let me hear them, and I agreed. She emailed the files with an unsolicited 600-plus word essay explaining her state of mind during the recordings, projecting insecurities, saying, "I love you," to convince herself, etc. Classic WW, refusing to fully own her words and minimizing actions with excuses. Later, I expressed how unhelpful these wishy-washy explanations were, and she eventually admitted I was right. She promised to accept her actions as the true judgment of her character without minimizing them. Yet, even when trying to be accountable, WW tends to shift blame, as evidenced by her qualifier, and it's mind-boggling. Sorry for the extra info, it's been on my mind. Rant over. Update. On a positive note, work is thriving for me, and I just secured another gig. I'm in a freelance gig-based economy, so these are crucial. Friends have been reaching out, ensuring I get out often. I've been seeing an IC who advised against making any long-term decisions on D or R for several more months. The focus is on personal health and comfort with myself as an individual. Though it's never been a problem, I'm inclined to follow her advice. So, WW and I are still living together, she in the guest room, and I spend most of my days in the kitchen to avoid her. This week is loaded with triggers for me. W flew back home to Minnesota for her sister's wedding. Exactly 1 year ago, her PA with the OM began during a solo trip to Minnesota for a wedding. So, originally I was supposed to join her for part of this trip. My flight was booked for Sept 15th. The original plan was for her to be in Minnesota for a week without me. Had D-Day not happened, I'm certain the OM would have flown in for a rendezvous, as they had on 2 other occasions when WW was in Minnesota without me. Now, I'm not going at all. The complication arises because yesterday, WW's parents informed her that her father has a major heart condition requiring full heart replacement surgery soon. Understandably, she's a wreck. She called me to share the news, which I appreciated, and expressed how much she wishes I were there to support her, which I didn't really appreciate. Following my IC's timeline, I'm supposed to make a final decision on R or D, and let's be honest, it's leaning towards D around the time when WW's father will undergo surgery. Unsure how to navigate this situation. Hello everyone. I appreciate the engaging discussion happening here. However, I want to clarify that I'm not seeking advice on the should I R or D aspect. I have a clear understanding of where my thoughts are headed. My post was highlighting the awkward timing concerning WW's father's medical situation. I'm still undecided about using my prepaid itinerary to fly in this weekend to wish him well. If I do, it might be the last opportunity to see him, though we aren't particularly close. In general, opting not to fly in requires the least effort, so that's likely what I'll go with. Perhaps I'll send him a card. She informed her parents about the affair months ago, as I might have mentioned earlier in this thread. Initially, she intended to keep the details vague, allowing her infidelity to be implied in line with Minnesota culture. I objected and insisted that she share the full story with her folks. Since then, I can't speak for WW's mother, but I know her father isn't too pleased with me. Months ago, he sent her a text message suggesting that he believes she's a good person and that I must have done something to provoke her actions. In the same text conversation, he also expressed his unhappiness with me for how I've been treating her since the affair came to light, making her feel depressed and constantly down on herself. Upon seeing those texts, I was furious, mainly because WW didn't respond in any way to defend me or truly take personal responsibility for her actions. My anger extended to my Phil as well, but now that I know he had just received devastating heart news and was confronting his own mortality, I'm inclined to be more understanding. Following that conversation, WW promised to take more responsibility when talking to her parents. Unfortunately, I don't have evidence of how that's actually unfolded. She doesn't text them as frequently, so I can't see the chat logs on her phone, and neither of her parents has reached out to me personally. Currently, I don't believe I'm in the darkest hours. It's not triggering intense agony, rather, a persistent malaise defines my state. Describing it to WW as default sad, it's more of a resigned acceptance of her choices and the inevitable path ahead. We're methodically sorting our lives and finances as this ship sails toward its unavoidable destination. Fortunately, my real-life friends have been incredibly supportive. Ironically, in a morbid way, my career has thrived since about a month after WW started her affair. I'm in demand, securing long-term jobs, attending meetings and fielding offers. Thank goodness this all unfolded during the best year of my life professionally. Otherwise, handling everything would be immensely challenging. As mentioned before, the major dread revolves around selling the house. While I could manage the monthly mortgage payments solo, buying her out of her half of the equity is financially daunting. It's a prospect I dislike, considering my aversion to moving and paying rent, especially when I was looking forward to never doing either again. Brief update. I reached out to the BW of the OM to update her on where WW and I stand. She and OM have initiated the divorce process. Her response was surprising. It's weird, but I'm sad to hear that things are not going to work out between you and WW. I guess I was hoping that at least one marriage would be able to survive this whole mess. It nearly broke my heart. Update. Thanks for the thread bump. So, an amusing incident occurred after I expressed to WW that her family never reached out to me post a revelation. The next day, I got an awkward Facebook message from her mother suggesting a conversation, but I clarified I wanted genuine concern, not a formal exchange. My attitude toward our future remains unchanged. While WW is making a strong effort to change, I'm not emotionally prepared to join her on this journey due to lingering anger and a lack of trust. It's mostly about preserving my own self-respect. You know, it's tempting and entertaining to depict my mother-in-law as some haughty, elitist figure, but the inconvenient truth is that she grew up in poverty, is deeply religious, and happens to be one of the most charitable individuals I've encountered. In essence, she's a good person. While some of Ofor's interpretations may ring true, particularly the "I have never liked you" statement, it's actually not accurate. WW's parents were genuinely thrilled when she and I started dating. Unlike WW's previous boyfriends, who often came from troubled backgrounds and lacked life goals or interest in higher education, I presented a different, positive choice. Her parents would playfully say that WW tended to take in strays when it came to dating, but with me, it was different, and her entire family acknowledged that distinction. When Maëlle mentions that she never got me, she's pointing to our challenge in having meaningful, substantial conversations. I tend to communicate through self-deprecating and sarcastic humor, while Mill leans toward earnestness. In essence, our exchanges were often brief and awkward, albeit polite. I suspect that Mill and Fiel might have believed WW could find a partner more aligned with their expectations. After all, which parents are thrilled when their daughter chooses to marry a comedy writer? However, they were equally aware that she could have ended up with someone far less desirable. I'm not letting the WW's family situation affect me. They're on the other side of the country and have no real sway in my day-to-day life. As someone correctly pointed out, they're in the periphery. More concerning to me is that self-respect aspect. I genuinely don't see how I could maintain a life or future with WW and still respect myself. I've tried explaining this to WW several times in recent weeks, but she seems mostly unable or unwilling to hear it. Instead, she turns it around into an insult directed at her, then gets defensive. For example, if you can't respect yourself for even considering reconciliation, then what does that say about what you really think of me? Recently, I found myself able to tolerate living with WW again. I'm not banishing her to the guest room whenever I'm home anymore. I talk to her when she's around. I share articles or YouTube clips that I think may interest her. However, when I notice how normal I'm acting, I immediately shut off and become distant. I remind her that while I recognize how hard she's working on changing herself, I still don't see us having a future together. In short, if I notice that we both seem to be having a good day, I stop and remind her why we should actually both be unhappy. That makes her start crying, which then makes me feel like a bully. Lately, something kind of weird for me is happening. Women have started flirting, hitting on me. A lot. I'm not sure if it's because I'm sending some vibes of singleness out into the world, or because I'm not wearing my wedding ring anymore, or if I'm just more perceptive to female advances now, or what. But it's been happening everywhere. Work functions, at the bank, from strangers on Twitter. Anyway, my reaction is always to act oblivious and ignore the flirtation. It makes me feel kind of dumb, though, that I'm choosing to remain faithful to this dumpster fire of a marriage. How am I doing? I don't know. The show I'm working on is becoming somewhat stressful, requiring me to invest more time and energy into that than my personal life right now. Otherwise, Thanksgiving is coming up. Every year since we moved to Los Angeles, WW and I would always go to our friend's house for dinner. He has a big event with 30 or 40 people in attendance. W asked me what she should do this year, and I basically told her that they're her friends too, and she has as much right to be there as I do. So, it looks like we'll both be attending that, I guess. It'll be our first time being out in public together since she told me all the details of the affair. I'm not nervous about spending a holiday with her, really. Since it's such a large gathering, it'll be fairly easy to work the room and engage with other people all day. Hey, just a quick note to clarify that I'm still participating in this forum because I appreciate the support, and some users have checked in for updates. Currently, I'm not seeking advice on what I should do, especially regarding R versus D. I'm working on those future plans with my IC. I do appreciate the passionate responses to my story. It's reassuring to know I have a community of strangers supporting me, but let's keep things calm, folks. Heading back home to the parents' house for the holidays on Monday the 18th. Looking forward to getting away. Dog boarding is set, and my suitcase is mostly packed with Christmas gifts for my brother's kids and barely any clothes. WW and I have been mostly peacefully coexisting. The real wrinkle is that Wednesday of this week is my 33rd birthday. Abu asked me what kind of cake she wanted me to make, to which I had to respond, no. It's weird. I really don't feel like celebrating my birthday because this year has been so awful, and I certainly don't want to spend it with WW. So I was thinking I might just go to a movie by myself. But then I realized that doing that may be even sadder. Thankfully, just a few days after my birthday, I'll be back home with my family, so maybe I can just mentally postpone all celebrations until then. The paperwork was filed, but either way, California has a 6-month cooling-off period, so no matter what, it wouldn't be final by now. Truthfully, I don't really talk to OBW too much anymore. The last time she mentioned AP to me was in early December. She said that he had been calling, texting her daily, begging her to take him back, and telling me things he thinks I want to hear. Then came the really interesting part. She said that he announced he was moving to the same area in Texas where she had just moved, and concluded, I have mixed feelings about that. I responded, why do you say your feelings are mixed? And she never replied. That leads me to believe she'll eventually take him back. Update: WW and I are having a joint therapy session in about 18 hours from now to finalize the details of our arrangement, paperwork, boundaries, etc. Not involving lawyers, just therapists to ensure everyone is on the same page. Thread about women hitting on me more often because I haven't been wearing the wedding ring. Well, I was at an industry event earlier tonight, and one particular woman was relentless to the point where it's making me uncomfortable. She's very cute, but I can tell she'd be drama to the extreme and would be nothing but a mistake. Not sure how to navigate telling someone, please stop, this is making me uncomfortable, especially when she shares many mutual professional friends with me. So that's going on too.